Hello and welcome to another LinkedIn Live. Today I'm going to wait, like I do normally, the first couple of minutes for people to join. Give you a little bit of background while we're waiting. So this will be for the people that watch the recording and anybody that gets here earlier or on time, I suppose. So I started in the pharmaceutical industry back in 1986. I'm celebrating now 4 decades. 4 decades in pharmaceuticals. Now, the topic today is directly relevant to my career. So we'll talk about that once we get to the actual presentation, when we get to 2 minutes, so that people are in. I've been in the pharmaceutical industry, like I say, 40 years, and I've enjoyed it. I wouldn't have stayed so long if I didn't. I did try leaving once and came straight back. I started the Academy of Pharmaceutical Excellence to be able to promote things more, to be able to share my experience, to be able to help others, I suppose is probably the best way to put it, to help you learn about the pharmaceutical industry, understand the intricacies, why some people find it difficult to progress and why others get there easily. The biggest hurdle, I guess, is probably the terminology. We use a lot of very specific terminology, which you won't learn in the university, you won't learn in school. You learn it by experience. And a lot of people think they can get in there, they can do their degree, and they can just start. Okay, so hopefully that's given enough time for everybody that's going to come to join. Welcome everybody to another LinkedIn Live. Paul Palmer, Dr. Paul R. Palmer. I'm a QP, and I'm the founder of the Academy of Pharmaceutical Excellence. You can see the logo up there. If you want to have a look at the website, you'll see at the end of the presentation, we'll give a slide, academypharmaceuticalexcellence.com. Okay, so today we're talking about from lab to leadership. It's an interesting topic for me because I've had a career where I started in the laboratory. I started in microbiology. I came straight from school, not from a degree first. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, really. I liked the idea of having my degree sponsored by the company I was going to work for. Rather than going back and resitting my A-levels, I joined the company and started my degree in applied biology. In the microbiology lab, I started from the basics, understanding the cleanliness, what was needed to make things work, the use of the sterilization equipment, the automatic bottle washing for our samples, and then on to pouring plates, environmental monitoring, Rodax or contact plates, as other people call them, the ones that you just roll on and off, which was interesting because I must have poured thousands of them over the 6 years in microbiology. And I used to train the graduates. So I was there having come from school and maybe, 2-3 years experience. And I was training those that had been away and done their degrees and come back and had really used the technicians in the university, so didn't know how to do it themselves. So learning from the basics in the lab, I do find is beneficial for a career in the pharmaceutical industry, because you get to know the basics. You understand why we do these different activities, what's needed. I remember doing formulation development and telling them when I was doing the preservative efficacy testing for the creams, before they even went through the test, I said, well, that's going to fail. And I could explain to them, especially I think it was the water in oil formulations, that the way that they'd designed the preservative profile, although they'd considered the range of organisms that might be present, what they hadn't done, they hadn't actually looked at the distribution of the preservative between the water phase and the oil phase. Now, oil in water is a lot easier. You preserve the water phase, and usually you can get away with the small amount of oil phase, but taking your preservatives into the oil phase is more difficult. You have to be specific about which one you're going to use and understand that which ones will work and which ones won't, which of course I knew from experience. I didn't have to know the technical side of it, even though I learned it over time. To be able to say this is going to work and this isn't going to work, I knew by experience within the lab. So the technical knowledge you gain within the laboratory does give you a big advantage within the pharmaceutical industry, because you can understand and give input, especially like if you're doing a risk assessment or a change control. Oh, on the basis of what I've learned already, I can tell you this. But your career doesn't progress just because you're there. You can't just assume somebody's going to give you a job or the next job. When I was in the lab there, I was doing my degree. I was getting progression each year as I was getting the next qualification. We got a certificate each year, all the way up to the honours degree. But I saw people in there when I started, and I still remember Tracy asking me, "Why do you do that so thoroughly? Why do you put so much effort into cleaning the bottles? You're just throwing away the rubbish." Now, my response, well, if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing properly. Now think about that. If you're going to do the job, if you're going to do it right, isn't that the best way to actually demonstrate your performance, your technical ability, but also your approach, the way that you contemplate the work? Now, I go into this a little bit further, because that person, 10 years later, when I was leading a team in QA, was still doing the same job. Because her attitude, her ethos, her philosophy on work was to do what was essential, not take it to that next level. Now, I like to take it to the next level, and achieve more. Because when you achieve more, people see. But even if they don't, your actual presence improves. You feel like, I'm doing something good. I'm helping you. I'm making it better. And I wasn't the one that caused that sink to get blocked. No. The people that were doing the basics were the ones that caused the problems within the lab, not the ones that went to that next level like me. I got involved in sterilization, validation. I got involved in other activities. So I had the technical understanding of microbiology, and I wanted to do more. I wanted to go into a leadership role. So I got to about 5 years in, and I thought, how am I going to get to the next level? And I looked around, because in microbiology, you got the chance to go out and do the activities. You did your environmental sampling. You did your validation. You did your transfers in. We had an aseptic manufacturing site that closed. I was there involved in the transfer in, doing the QA oversight. But the point is, you don't just do the technical side. You look around, you observe, you understand what's going on. And based on what I could see going on around me, I saw the people in the leadership roles dressing differently to the way I did. They were in a suit and a tie. And a shirt, of course. And at the time, I was wearing my jumper, like the other people within the lab. So I changed my style. Within a year, I'd moved from the technician to the supervisor role. Now, I wouldn't say it was easy to get there. But the truth is, career progression in pharma requires more than scientific knowledge. You need to get an understanding of what's going on in the organization around you. You need to think about what's the strategic approach, what's next. And I went and I spoke to people, and I understood what was needed to get to the next level. And I didn't get the first role that I applied for. And honestly, the head of production said, I wouldn't have even considered you for the role. What we were doing at the time was introducing process control. Now, process control really was a replacement for QC on the line, but in the production environment. Now, my direct competitor was 15, 20 years more experienced, but I was still in the last two considered for that role. Now, think about that. I've been in the company 6 years, but I'd only been a graduate for 1 year. And I was already competing with somebody that with 20 years experience. And the next supervisory role in QC was mine. Because that trial was only going on in one of the areas, and it just happened to be in the medical devices. And I went to the QC area that was looking after a different set of medical devices and medicinal products. And then a couple of years later, I was promoted again to take responsibility for all of the medicinal products, the quality assurance oversight as the QA manager for all the medicinal products on site. But I had an intentional strategy. I wanted to progress. And I was working closely with the senior managers to do that. But think about your pharma career ladder. You might want to just stay in quality. The career paths tend to be quite specific. Quality, manufacturing, regulatory, validation, supply chain, R&D. But of course, there's some overlap. Validation and quality, you can switch between the two. Quality and regulatory affairs often go together. Supply chain and manufacturing, part of the same path, but supply chain is more admin, manufacturing's more practical. But they're still together, so you can move between the two. R&D is an interesting one. R&D often is a starting point and then move into one of the others. It's rare that somebody will go from, say, reg affairs to R&D. They usually have quite a strong technical background and administrative focus in regulatory affairs, whereas R&D is often the practical focus, which you'd get in manufacturing. But I do see mostly it's new graduates that come into R&D with new ideas. So when you think about where you want to go, think about the technical side of things to get in the first place. But then if you want to take a leadership role, quite often you'll find that the tracks diverge. And you have to think about where it is you want to be so that you can get your career to go ahead the way you want it to. For myself, when I was 25, I looked around and I decided I wanted to be a QP. Qualified person is probably the highest technical road you get in quality. And I thought, well, they're always going to need QPs. That was my thought. We were at a time where there was redundancies going around. And I thought, well, if there's one job in this company that they're always going to need, it's going to be the qualified person to release the batches. So that's what I did. All right, it took me another 6 years with the 2 years training to find a company and get the qualification. And I became a QP in 2004. And I've been named on a license ever since. But technical excellence isn't enough. You have to be able to manage people. You have to be able to influence people. You have to be able to talk them through from the basics, which I find many people are missing. If you've done a degree and a master's, chances are you won't know anything about the cleaning the bottles, about pouring the Rodax, about what happens if you don't put your settle plates out for the right amount of time. What happens if you forget to put them into the incubator properly? And that compromises your ability to lead an investigation if you don't know the basics. But then when you think about people management is completely different. You don't have the technical skills when you're looking at people. You have the soft skills. Where's your high performers? Where's the ones that do the technical aspects that you want them to do? How are you going to manage the team to make sure you actually deliver what you want? And I remember there's one particular One particular time when I was in the supervisor role, and I needed them to do something for me, do something different to what they would normally do. I'd identified a problem. They were testing to compliance instead of testing, taking action, and then coming back and doing a retest for one of the books. And the lady that had always done it that way, I said, well, we're not doing it right. We're not following the correct process. We're not following GMP. And she kicked a box across the lab. Fortunately, it didn't break anything, because she'd been told for so many years by the previous boss that that's how she had to do it. And instead, she went back to manufacturing and they fixed the problem, came back, tested it, and it passed on the GC. But managing people is an interesting one. It takes time. You need to understand how different people work, how different people respond. Not everybody's the same. I tried to help one person to understand what he needed to not leave the business, not to leave his role. But he'd already been treated too badly by the previous manager. Senior leaders are expected to understand cost, risk, commercial priorities, strategy, not just science, not just compliance, not even just people management. So as you progress, you need to learn. And I personally believe that we should all continuously learn throughout our whole career. So what sort of skills do you need to accelerate career progression? Well, communication. And most people think communication is about talking. And I just noticed there's a mistake on the slide. So that one, problem solving and decision making, is then blending into the emotional intelligence part of the slide. Sorry about that. So communication and presentation. It is about articulating complex concepts, but it's also about getting people to understand. Presentations are important, but communication is a two-way activity. You need to listen mostly as much as you communicate, sometimes more, to make sure that you realize or you can verify that they understand what you're talking about. Problem solving and decision making is something that a lot of people actually, I wouldn't say withdraw from, but they're reticent. They don't want to do it. They don't want to make the decision because throughout their career, maybe 5, 10, 20 years, they've been told what to do. And they find it difficult to change, even as they go up the ladder. Problem solving, yeah, technical aspects of people usually understand how to solve the problems, but that sometimes is a detriment. Sometimes they then get into the minutiae every time and support the team, but don't delegate. Emotional intelligence is a difficult one. It's the people management again, empathy, read interpersonal dynamics. And I would say it's more difficult now when people are based remotely. It's much easier doing it face to face. When I was a supervisor, I used to watch across the room to the other side of the canteen because I can lip read. I learned to lip read when I was a child. And I used to see what the engineers were talking about. Not always the engineers, but mostly. And I'd go back and ask them about it afterwards. And I'd ask them about it in a positive way. How's this going? Is this working right? We really need this to be addressed. What's the current status? Open questions, nice, non-judgmental, because I knew what was going wrong. Cross-functional collaboration is important. We have to work together. It's not just a single silo. And when people just push things over the wall, which is the way that things always used to happen, it's not the way to do things. What we really need is to work together. And as we work together, understand each other's roles, the benefits of doing it together. Influencing without the authority is interesting. So I'll give you an example. I was the project leader of a cross-functional team doing a line extension. And the way that I influenced wasn't to say, tell them, we've got to do this task, this task, this task. Instead, I asked them, and I got their buy-in. What is it we're doing today? Oh, we're doing this. Right. Okay. Well, based on that, how can we achieve more? Oh, well, this is due this time, so we're just going to leave it and do it then. But what's the impact if we don't? What's the impact if we do it earlier? And I asked a different team member, marketing, what would happen if we went to market, blah, 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 so many months late. And the impact as a result was 150,000. Was it 1.5 million? Now that's a good question. So next to zero, isn't it? I think it was 150,000 extra revenue that year. Just by that one task. I went to a QC meeting for another company. We were about to reject. How much was it? We were about to reject, I guess. No, I know we were about to lose a contract for 70 million. I can't remember how much we were about to reject. I think it's 1.5 million vials. Already manufactured, but they were labeled incorrectly. And I said, oh, we don't know how to do it. We can't relabel, we can't overlabel. What are we going to do? And I said, well, I'll find a subcontractor that can sort it out for us. We'll address the problem. We'll put it back on the market. And I helped them achieve the result they wanted. Which I suppose is another way. It's a best way to influence is to help somebody. So, common mistakes in the path from the lab to leadership. Waiting. Throughout my career, I always put my hand up. I'll do that. Somebody needs to do the go over to the other factory and do this. I'll do that. Oh, I need somebody to go to the waste dump to supervise the destruction of the controlled drugs. I'll do that. Why? To get involved, to be front of mind, to support other teams. They wanted somebody to do overtime. I'll do that. It was in manufacturing. But I built a close relationship with manufacturing already in the tea room. And I supported them with this extra overtime that they needed to complete to get the batch out on time. Never stay in a single silo. Always help other teams. Don't just do the technical development. I remember going away on courses. Why do I need to do presentation skills? Why do I need to do influencing skills? But I did them anyway. I did them because I knew they were going to be beneficial longer term. I studied psychology in my master's. When they offered me a master's in quality management, I took it. Okay, I wanted business administration, but I've done that since. At the time, this was the best way forward for me. Yes, I did the technical development, but I looked at the curriculum. There was psychology in there, practical application. There was a project which I could choose myself. And I chose benchmarking. And benchmarking was really interesting. It wasn't technically based, it was commercially based. One thing I would say is always be visible. Whatever you do, make sure somebody can see. And never assume that effort means promotion. You have to put yourself out there. Somebody will just let you do the hours. And if you don't say you want something, you're never going to be offered it. They won't select you for the next promotion just because. Maybe they'll progress within an area, but it's not going to be significant. It might be a name change. It might be a reorganization. But if you want to do well, you have to influence. You have to be ready. You have to demonstrate impact to improve the business, give the results, and be visible. Showing people that you can do it, chairing the meetings, leading the initiatives. Of course, they have to work. Build your professional reputation by being reliable, consistent, having integrity under pressure. No, I'm not going to release it just because you need it. I'm going to release it because it's right, because it's passed. I remember having to reject a batch. This was before I was a QP. As a supervisor or QA manager, I can't remember now. Must have been supervisor because it was in QC. We'd done the statistical sample. They'd done the inspection. We did the resample and it still failed. And they explained why it had failed the second time. So they did it again. And the third time it still failed and they rejected it. They didn't want to reject 1.5 million of the largest product that they had, the most expensive one with the most expensive components. But it failed. So it went in the bin. You have to have the integrity. A sterile product needs to be integral. You can't have it leaking. But it can be difficult to move from a specialist to be a leader. You have to deliver. You need to be outcome focused, not just task focused. Give the results, make it work, give the report, and be strategic. Balance the quality against the compliance and business priorities. Make sure people can see the way that you approach things takes everything into account. And delegation's not a loss of control. It's needed. It's essential for leadership. But moving from a specialist to a leader and being involved in delegation is quite difficult. Often you'll find a specialist, technical specialist, knows more than everybody else. And they find it difficult to leave it and let the other people do the investigations. But it's essential for your own development to a leadership role. Now, I believe in continuous learning. You need to understand what's coming in the business, what's coming in the regulatory. All right, I've said you don't want to focus just on technical, but regulatory changes can give you a leadership position because you know where we need to go next. Understand what's coming in new technology, because new technology is where the business will be going next. And the people that understand it will be the ones that lead it forward. I remember my first EQMS implementation, leading as the quality lead. Leadership and business literacy. Well, how does a business work? Because from supply, incoming goods, incoming materials, you convert to a finished product, you test it, warehouse it, and ship it. But what does that mean? How does that work for the business? Understand the accounting structure. Understand overheads. Understand capital employed. If you don't, you're never going to be able to influence the finance team. Understand the way that the commercial side of the business is managed. Understand the way that the manufacturing team is managed, what their key performance indicators are. That's how you'll progress, by understanding what other people want. And then there's external. You engage with your professional community. Whatever you've done to get to the standard that you're at, there's always more. Join an industry body. Go to peer networks, mentoring relationships to help you progress. And then, of course, once you have progressed, you want to go higher. You want to do the mentoring for others, as I do now. But how do you get there? Well, think about where you want to be. I told you I wanted to be a QP. So I developed a plan. So my plan was to get the experience I needed, a broader scope. One company gave me a lot of it, gave me a wide breadth to start off with, but I still wanted more. I'd never done tablet manufacturing. So what did I do? I went to a company with tablet manufacturing and capsules as well, and high potency and controlled drugs. I was lucky. But I got the solid dose experience that I wanted for those 2 years. I moved on, completed my QP course. Now, at the time, there was a 6-month waiting period for the Viva. But what had I done? Well, I'd done my networking. I'd attended the events for trainee QPs for the 3 years. Maybe 3. I think I started before. And I knew the people that were setting the schedule, that were setting the appointments for the Viva, that were reviewing the application form. So I understood what needed to be in the form. And I had my Viva date already agreed before I even completed the course. So I got my QP status. I was the first in my group because I'd used what I talked about today. I used my influencing skills. I'd spoken to the person that I knew had the ability to set the date, and I got it set. And I passed first time. So think about your plan. Who do I need to influence? Look at your direction. Where do I want to be in 3 to 5 years? I did that first time, was with a millionaire. Audit your skills. Do you have what you need? If you don't, get it. Get the experience. Mentors, sponsors are always beneficial. Always. Working with a millionaire was really beneficial for me. Volunteer for the difficult projects. Now, the one I remember is PICME, Process Industry Center for Manufacturing Excellence, a government-led program, and it went really well. But it's way outside of my experience when I joined. And it went really well. And we mapped the whole business process on video. We mapped then that converted to timings. We used the wastes, the 5 wastes that you get when you do your SPC and other performance-related projects. I'm considering whether I should mention them by name. I don't think I should because I don't want to get into trouble for trademark. But we can talk about them another time. Review and adapt regularly. Always consider what's next, as I still am now. And that's why I'm doing lives. Leadership's not a journey, a job title. It's opportunity. Every role's a leadership opportunity. Growth is intentional. You're not just going to get given it. You have to want it. It's not about more money. It's about wanting growth. It's about wanting to lead a team. It's about wanting to be there. The best leaders never stop learning. I believe in lifelong learning. I'm 58 and I'm still studying. I'm actually on more courses than I should be at the moment, but hey. So, thank you all for joining. I hope you found today's live useful. As I've said at the beginning, my name's Paul Palmer, Dr. Paul R. Palmer. Yes, I've got the MBA. Yes, I've got the Masters. Yes, I'm a biologist. Yes, I'm a QP and an auditor. I'm a pharmaceutical consultant. I'm here to help. If you need support, contact me. Got the email there. Hopefully you're still connected already on LinkedIn. But if you're not, if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me a message. I'm happy to help. I am a qualified person. I'm an RP and RPI. And I'm the founder of the Academy of Pharmaceutical Excellence. Now here we offer training courses. So please do go ahead and take a look at the website. And if there's something that you're interested in, get in touch. You can submit the form or you can use the email address. I don't mind either way. Hopefully we can help you go from the lab to leadership. And if there's something that we don't actually offer at the moment that you're looking for, message me and I'll see what I can do. Because the curriculum's always changing, just like life's always changing. It takes time to develop a course. So I'm adding more. So if you come back tomorrow, you'll probably find there's extras that aren't there today. Next one I'm thinking about is AI. But that's probably not something that you want when you're just starting out. When you go into a leadership role, you definitely need to understand AI. Okay, so that's it for today. My name's Paul Palmer, founder of the Academy of Pharmaceutical Excellence, Dr. Paul R. Palmer. I keep forgetting to say the doctor part. I'll talk to you all soon. Thank you.